part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I am your host, Damon Royster. Welcome back, everybody. We are in our penultimate Summer of X coverage. Second to last X-Men movie that we're going to talk about. And today, oh boy, you knew it was coming. It is time to talk about X-Men Apocalypse, a.k.a. Are you sure that's Oscar Isaac? This is a fantastically sad and bloated film coming in at about 2.5 hours, and it's bad. And it's directed by a criminal. I don't want to talk about him. If you don't know Bryan Singer, he is essentially on Kevin Spacey level of bad. But this is his last film directing the X-Men movie. And to be honest, I never do this. I never talk about my feelings up top, but this is a painful watch for me. I did not like this movie. So I brought two delightful rays of sunshine to help me parse through this dour film. Truly, when you think of X-Men Apocalypse, you'll never think of these two names. I'm just going to tell you that. You would never think, I'm going to get these two to talk about this movie. But that's what we do on Podcast 616. We break convention. My first guest is a musician, talented musician. They have a new album that is streaming on Spotify. My friends are amazing celebrities. Please welcome to your ears, Nia D'Emilio.
Hello, everybody. Thrilled to be here.
Nia, you know what, Nia, it does make sense for you to be here because Nia and I famously went to go see Avatar 2, The Way of Water. Yeah. And listener, just before the lights dim, Nia leans over to me and says, I've never seen Avatar 1. And I was like, this chick is wild. She is ready to party. Let's go. Nia, how are you?
I'm doing so well. And I thought about that when I was watching this movie too, because I haven't seen the one that precedes this. But that is how I roll. So yeah, I'm excited.
And officially, this is your only X-Men movie you've ever watched.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. All right. I have so many questions for you, but we have to get to my second guest. I mean, my gosh, friend for years. I think we've got some years on us. Truly so funny. Favorite. No, I won't say she was my favorite, but we were on a team together on my favorite indie team. That was my favorite. She's a regular girl. And she's also currently an artist on the road. Please welcome to your ears, finally, Natalie Peeples.
Yes. Thank you, very old friend.
You're welcome, old friend. Much like Charles Xavier and Magneto, two old friends, you know?
Exactly.
Natalie, how are you? And do you feel comfortable sharing where you're located right now?
Yes, I'm a little tired because last night I was at the Vegas residency of Kelly Clarkson, and now I'm at the business center of the Palms Hotel.
Okay. Wow. Natalie, thank you for doing this podcast. You really didn't need
Got my
to.
Gatorade.
Get that Gatorade. I mean, did she do songs from Chemistry?
She did. And it's kind of in the theme of me being on this podcast. I hadn't listened to any of Chemistry, but I went anyway. So kind of discovering new things live.
And you know, that's what I love about these two. They're taking chances, much like Celine Dion, and they're not afraid to explore things they haven't done before. And that's the whole point of Podcast 616, I've decided. Okay, I've talked long enough. We have to talk about X-Men Apocalypse. For the nerds out there, yes, this is the third movie of prequels. It is the essentially, where are we at? It's the eighth movie we've talked about on this podcast. Is that right? That feels wrong. 6, 7, 8, 9, ninth movie. Jesus. 3 original X-Men, 3 Wolverines, 2 prequels, and here we are at Apocalypse. It's also serving as a reboot for the franchise because in the last movie, Days of Future Past, we time traveled and reset everything. So truly any character can show up. Gonna go to Nia D'Emilio first. Apocalypse. You liking him or not liking him? What's up?
Well, so I had received correspondence from you, Damon, that Oscar Isaac was in this film. Mm-hmm. And I was waiting for him to appear. And it truly was not until halfway through the movie that I went, oh, that's Oscar Isaac.
Oh, yeah.
So I think like something that I didn't quite follow was like, they believe that he was the first mutant, like the ancient Egyptians. And to me, like that tracks. It seems like he has like these insane powers. He seems very kind of all powerful as a character. The Oscar Isaac of it and the makeup, insane.
Very insane. And I will say, you do see him makeupless in the very, very beginning when they're like transferring.
When he's on the thing.
Yeah, when he's on the slab and he's like, and then I think the guards attack and like he's falling and that one mutant like moves the pieces of Apocalypse's machinery armor skin onto Oscar Isaac. So like you get to see him a little bit, but yeah, it's not a great showing for Oscar Isaacs. But he did get the check for this role. So yeah, Apocalypse, first mutant of all time, and he just kind of collects powers throughout the years, and he just basically wants to take over. Natalie Peeples, you watched Days of Future Past before X-Men Apocalypse. Did you find that helped you in any type of enjoyment of this film?
I'm sure it helped a little, but I still felt like both movies just kind of washed over me. I have no idea what happened. They kind of start out so strong and you're like, when will I figure out who Apocalypse even is? Did they even ever say Apocalypse?
No, I feel like they said the word, but not in like, that's his name.
Right.
I think watching both of the movies back to back, it helped me vibes wise, but it did not help me kind of plot wise.
And I would say vibes are more on your side. Because honestly, the plot, I'll just say it. I hate this movie. I think it's so dumb. It's too long and it's too sad. And someone who may be the guest on my next X-Men podcast suggested that it's fun. But I could argue that anything fun that happens in Apocalypse is squashed by just how dark and sad it is. Yeah. And also, the plot is confusing because he basically just wants to rule the world.
What I couldn't figure out, and I was texting a former guest of this podcast, Trent Dozier, as I was watching this movie. What I could not figure out was like who the villain was. Like I was like, okay, I think it's supposed to be Apocalypse because that's in the title of the movie. But also like we get this whole story about Magneto, and I was like, okay, well, is he? And then he kind of turns back to good at the end. I just was like, I don't understand like who is the bad guy in this movie because there's like 5 of them.
I would agree. Well, so Apocalypse. So I did a little research. I watched the X-Men animated series and they did 9 episodes about Apocalypse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I watched 5 of them. And basically he always has like the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse. He has like his little hench people and they're always like regular mutants that he like seduces and corrupts. So in this one we get, Magneto is one. We get Storm, played by Alexandra Shipp, who I'd seen this, and then I'd seen what is that movie with Andrew Garfield, the musical? It was on Netflix.
Tick, Tick, Boom.
Tick, Tick, Boom, and she's in that. And I was like, oh, that's the same person? Wild. We also got Angel, and then producer Michael did some research, and Natalie Peeples, your former roommate Olivia Munn is in this movie.
My former roommate.
Michael did some research. We found that you actually lived with Olivia Munn for a time in Chicago. What was it like seeing her in this movie?
Just like old days. She's just the same. She's so real.
So real.
She's so real.
Well, I put the question to you two of the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse. Oh, plus there's Angel with the little wings. Of the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse, any standouts for either of you?
I think she was probably the standout to me. It seemed like she was sort of the leader of the sidekicks.
I'm doing this thing with my hand with, because she has that pink sword hand.
The whip, yeah.
I don't know. Color me crazy, but if I'm looking for powerful mutants to be my allies, I don't know if I would see pink sword. Yeah, You need to stick around. Like, because when Apocalypse first meets her character name is Psylocke, played by Olivia Munn. She kind of like puts a really sharp, again, terrible CGI'd pink sword in his face, and he's like, "Ooh, so sharp! I have to have you as my soldier."
Yeah, absolutely.
My gosh, Nia D'Emilio, Magneto. You texted me a song, and I just listened to it before we recorded. Do you want to explain the song you sent me and why did you think of it?
Yes. So I, as you introduced me, am a musician. And because of that, I love music. And one of my favorite, if not my favorite of all time musician is Paul McCartney. And on the 1975 album Venus and Mars by Wings, there is a song that Paul McCartney released as a single as well called Magneto and Titanium Man. And the song is like the narrator, who I assume is just Paul McCartney. Magneto and Titanium Man have told him that his love is supposed to rob a bank in the middle of the afternoon. And then throughout the song, he realizes that they are lying to him because they are bad people. So like, it's such a weird song, and it's very upbeat. I mean, you listened to it, Damon.
I did.
It's so bizarre in the Paul McCartney canon, but that is really my biggest exposure to Magneto as a character is Paul McCartney in this song saying Magneto was bad. That's like really what I knew about him going into this movie.
And I think that's fair. He is bad. Paul McCartney ain't telling no lies. But his plot in this movie was so sad. I'm so sorry you watched it. A child died in this movie.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
Crazy. That was crazy. That scene. There's like two scenes that I would be like, they're really good in this movie, and that was one of them. Even though it was sad, like them dying, crazy, and then him getting that coin or whatever it was, and then like slitting the throats of all those soldiers who were. I was like.
Yeah. That was the part where I was like, excuse me? Why did he do that?
I do agree. Oh yeah. Too sad. And it was a good scene. It was a good scene up until he shouted, "Is this what you want from me?" Like Jennifer Love Hewitt and I Know What You Did Last Summer screaming to the heavens, "What do you want from me?"
I feel like I did the most independent research on Magneto after watching this, and apparently he has like 1 million children.
Well, I mean, yes, and when they cast Michael Fassbender, I was like, I get it. Makes sense.
Yeah, he's got that dog in him, as they say.
A bow wow. Okay, we're hitting that. Any thoughts on Storm that we should say? I mean, this is a young Halle Berry, essentially, is what they're saying. I didn't know that she lived in Egypt. That was interesting to learn.
Yeah.
I don't believe she's Egyptian, but I think they did a catch-all Africa moment with her, so I'll say that. That was rough. That was much like a dog. Rough. Okay, so we have the Horror Horseman Apocalypse, but we haven't even gotten to. Well, let's pace it out like the movie. Sorry, listener. Natalie Peeples just took a big swig of some blue Gatorade, and that made me think of Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique. So Natalie Peeples, how did you take in Mystique and the J-Law of it all?
Okay, so again, haven't seen too many Marvel movies, but the whole time I just thought she is unnecessarily sexy in this. Like, why is she nude and blue? And then I read some behind the scenes that she's having skin allergies to being painted blue all the time, so they had to change her to more of a jumpsuit. So I think I got a little sidetracked on what she was actually doing in the film by looking up sort of why she was blue.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Jennifer Lawrence. Whatever she does, go girl.
Go girl. And the makers of this movie can feel that, because I'll tell you this. Sorry, J-Law fans, but Mystique can only transform her exterior. Why is she's not a fighter? I don't understand why she's like leading the charge for all this stuff. You got people who can literally shoot lasers out of their eyes, but it's for some reason Mystique is like this global hero because she put a gun in Richard Nixon's face and then put it down, and everyone's like, oh my God, I love her. Like Storm's got like a picture of Mystique on her wall of like, she's my hero.
But like her only power is shape-shifting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I get
I will
your
say-
complaint.
Yes, but I feel like maybe this isn't a good comparison, but I felt like she was kind of Jean Parmesaning me constantly. Like whenever you'd find out someone else was actually her, I was like, oh, it's Jennifer Lawrence.
It's Jean.
That's so funny. Oh my God. I
Okay.
love that comparison.
And that does help me, so thank you. So everyone has Jessica Walters level love for Mystique like they do Jean Parmesan. Okay. All right. I rescind my note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nia D'Emilio, I'm gonna come to you. So again, producer Michael did some research on both you guys, and he found out that for a time you were considered a mutant because of your musical talents, and you actually you actually attended Xavier School for Gifted Children.
Right.
So what was it like? Did you meet some of the X-Men? Like, tell me about your time on campus.
It was so fun. Charles Xavier, a genuinely nice guy. Kind of exactly what you see is what you get. Truly a pacifist on an individual level as well. And Jean, not Jean Parmesan, but Jean Sophie Turner.
Jean Grey.
What? Yes, people were mean to her, but I always tried to be nice.
Good. You're right on the money, because if you see the next movie, you don't want to make Jean mad. She'll she'll kill you. But Nia, how was it? Because I really liked the energy here. It feels like they're trying to it felt like a little Harry Potter-y. It felt like we were at Hogwarts. So as this being your first look at the X-Men school, I think they do a good job with the school parts of X-Men. How did you feel?
Yeah, I think so too. I think my other favorite scene in the movie, and which I think is my favorite scene, is the explosion when Quicksilver gets everybody out of it. And I feel like that is the time that we got to see the majority of the grounds. Like we saw a lot of different rooms and of the school. And it did remind me of Hogwarts.
It's really fun. And, and that's a beautiful thing of having people with superpowers. They'll just build it up again. If it blows up, some characters that we get introduced to here, Jean Grey and Cyclops, I think they did this is the first time I actually understood the Jean Grey Cyclops relationship, because spoiler alert for you two, they're going to be, they're a thing, if you couldn't tell. But they've never depicted their first meet. They've always been the established couple. So this was nice to see the beginning. And I liked how it was this exploration of they both have these uncontrollable powers, and they're both wild, which is nice because they honestly get kind of boring when they grow up. Cyclops, we get him with some laser eyes. We get Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner, who great. Love that little demon. Okay. So sorry. Just checking my notes. Okay. James McAvoy's hair looks good. Michael, cut all this stuff out. Okay. Quiz. Natalie Peeples. Can you tell me who Rose Byrne was in this movie?
Okay. I was paying a lot of attention because she did seem like, why is she here? I couldn't tell you her name. I couldn't tell you who she was.
It's going to be Moira McTaggart. I'm so sorry to say is her name.
I can't believe I couldn't come up with that, because I did think Moira was a wild choice.
Yeah. So Rose Byrne, she was in the very first prequel movie, First Class, and she's a human, works for the CIA, and wouldn't you know it, she's also doing some tomb raiding in this movie. Charles Xavier, like a monster, erased her memory of him and then fully gaslights her for about 2.5 hours. Or I guess 2 hours. In the last half hour, she remembers everything. I just want to shout out Rose Byrne. Did she stand out for you guys at all? Anything of
I
note?
think that she's like excellent as an actor in general. I did not understand who she was like to the plot, and I didn't understand why he would erase her memory. I guess like, did he do it because he was kind of doing that man thing that's like, I'm doing it for your own good? Like, is that why he did it? Okay, I'm getting a nod from Damon. So
Hundo P, yeah.
I don't know. Like, she works for the CIA. Like, I think she can, handle it.
I said it on the podcast for that movie, but I'll say it again here. She literally came up with the name X-Men, and then he erased her memory and then took the name. And
Boo.
Thank you.
Boo.
Never forget. He stole a woman's idea and then made her forget.
That sucks. I take everything back that I said about him as a headmaster.
Honestly, you're right. I think the movies try, because this is like, he's currently young Patrick Stewart. And I always feel like these prequels go so far to make him kind of an asshole, to make him so different than Patrick Stewart, that it gets to the point where I'm like, why are we following him? Why are we listening to him?
Can I ask a question to the group?
Absolutely.
Do people like James McAvoy?
Like the actor?
Yeah.
Natalie, do you want to go first?
I've never seen him in anything else.
Wow.
I have seen movies.
I don't know. Natalie, I think you've only seen 2 movies, and they've both been X-Men movies.
These 2 movies.
I love James McAvoy. Atonement. He was my crush for a long time in Atonement. I'm not one of these girls, but I know people love the Chronicles of Narnia. He's got like the half man, half goat body.
Oh yeah.
Is he Mr. Tumnus?
He is Mr. Tumnus. Yep.
Okay, I guess I have seen him.
Listeners, Nia's mind has been blown officially.
I'm literally Googling. Like, I obviously believe you, but I need to read it.
Please read it. read it and weep. Okay.
So right now we all have Mr. Tumnus images up on our other tab.
That's shocking to me. I don't know why I never put that together.
The Tumnus of it all?
Yeah, that is crazy.
Well, because he's in a wheelchair in this one, so you can't, different levels are different.
Yeah, I guess I've never just seen him with working legs, working human legs. No, that's not true. He's in It Chapter 2.
Yes, he's in It Chapter 2. And again, if y'all haven't seen Atonement, I mean, if you haven't seen Atonement and you want your world rocked and in the worst way, you want to feel sad, watch Atonement. I think it's a perfect movie. I love Atonement.
Okay.
I would rather be talking about Atonement than X-Men Apocalypse.
X-Men Atonement.
That's what this should be called, X-Men Atonement. Nia D'Emilio, what is your understanding of X-Men and mutant relations? Like, did you get a sense of like the struggles that they have to go through on a day-to-day basis in this?
I did. To give you like a background on my understanding of the X-Men period, I actually didn't know that like they were mutants. I didn't know that like these powers were like innate, like it was some kind of like genetic thing in them. Yeah. But my older brother loved Wolverine. Like he had all the X-Men figures. I think that was probably like the biggest comic book thing in our house was the X-Men. So I know like a lot of the characters, but I don't think I understood the struggles. But I got it from this movie pretty immediately, like because Nightcrawler and the Wing guy,
Angel,
are fighting in a cage.
Yeah.
I was like, this feels bad.
Yeah, sometimes them humans, they just want to see them fight. And also, there's like a lot of metaphors for puberty. Like that's why Cyclops, suddenly his eyes, start shooting out lasers because he's growing up and he's mutating. Natalie Peeples, after watching 2 X-Men movies, I can't believe you love it. But since you do, would you say you're where do you fall? Do you fall on the side of like Magneto, who's like, we need to just be mutants exclusively, no humans? Or are you on the side of Professor X, where it's like, we need to work with them, we need to be integrating more with the rest of the world?
I feel like I've got to go with Professor X, even though that's obviously going to be the harder journey.
Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I will also say that this movie had many similarities to Incredibles 2.
Speak on that, please.
Well, because the Incredible, like I guess in both Incredibles movies, there is a lot of anti-super sentiment.
Yeah.
And in Incredibles 2, Bob Odenkirk's character is like he's pro supers. So, but I feel like a lot of the struggle in Incredibles 2 is about like anti-super sentiment, which I don't know how the genetics in the Incredibles works. I don't know if they're born like if it's a mutant situation, like the X-Men. But I literally did think about Incredibles 2 during this movie. I was like, there are some similarities here.
I would say that's the best way to enjoy this movie, is to think about Incredibles 2.
Yeah, or other movies in general.
And I will say there are other X-Men movies. I want to save I want to save my team in your eyes. There are other X-Men movies that do this. They do deal with like, the public sentiment about mutants. But this one, because again, it is the 9th film that they made. It's, this one is more focused on what do we do when it's one of our own, one of our mutant kind that is rising up and causing all the trouble. Which then leads to them, because there's like a thread where like the X-Men don't really exist. It's just a school. And at the end, they like have that call to arms with Mystique really screaming, doing her general voice. This is my impersonation of Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique with his gravelly voice.
Pretty good.
Recruit the team. Oh, thank you. I used to be an actor. So it's like, okay, this issue with Apocalypse led to the formation of the X-Men, but I will say this, I think it's too much. It's crazy. Like, why did it have to be Apocalypse? It could have just been Magneto again. Like, it could have just been a regular mutant gone wild. Why did it have to be the mutants of all mutants who wanted to end all of mankind?
Yeah.
And I don't know, after an apocalypse attack, I'm like, we need a space station. We need to get the Avengers involved. We can't. And there's like, oh yeah, we're just going to go back to the basement and fight robots in our basement. That'll prepare us for another cataclysmic event.
Can I ask you a question, Damon?
Please.
Is this the only, like, because I know that like Ian McKellen plays Magneto, which implies to me that Magneto is in other X-Men films. Is this the only X-Men film that Apocalypse is in?
Thankfully, yes. Because what's happening is what you're seeing is ideas running out. And the last 2 X-Men movies they made, Apocalypse and the one after this, Dark Phoenix, those are 2 like major like 20 issue arcs they did in the comic books. And so they're like, okay, let's get these big tentpole things and we'll do a movie about those. Because we're running out of like the day-to-day X-Men stuff.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. And much like the X-Men franchise is running out of ideas, we're running out of time in the first half of our show. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about X-Men Apocalypse. I promise. Because that's all we're here to do. X-Men Apocalypse coming at you. Because we're right here to Podcast 616. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome, everyone, to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I am your host, Damon Royster, and I am inviting you to listen and subscribe to this Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. On Podcast 616, we gather some of today's greatest comedians, writers, and actors to dive deep into all things Marvel, like comic book history and lore, all the interconnected superhero storylines, and of course, who's hot and who's not in the MCU. Honestly, why aren't you listening right now? You have the power to listen to Podcast 616. And as we always say, with great power comes even greater responsibility. Listen and subscribe to Podcast 616 wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
And we're back. I physically came back into the call. Okay. Ladies, let's talk about Apocalypse. What is he? How would you describe him? Natalie Peeples, you are an artist by trade. If you were going to commission a portrait of Apocalypse, how would you describe him to an artist to draw him?
I think he would be a better sculpture. I think you got to find just like a huge, a craggy rock and sort of chisel him away, you know?
Yes.
But also wet. He seems sort of damp.
There is, yes, which is crazy because he's been buried underneath a pyramid for thousands of years, but he's very wet. Nia D'Emilio, how would you describe Apocalypse?
Damon, you're gonna love this. I think a couple months ago I told you, and this is real, one of my favorite superhero movies of all time is The Fantastic Four, with Chris Evans as the Human Torch. I know many people hate that movie. I love it. I just saw it as a kid, and you know, it's one of those things.
Michael almost quit when we did Fantastic Four, so careful.
Well, so pretty immediately, but like the Fantastic Four was made in like 2004, 2003, like sometime around there. 2005.
Michael knows.
Great. Mid-aughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would think in 10 years we would get beyond the Michael Chiklis thing makeup, but that is all I could think of when I saw Apocalypse. It is the same, just blue.
The same but blue, I would agree. He looks to me, you know, it's interesting when Natalie said sculpture. It looks to me like, you know, Kiln. Is it Kiln? The Kiln or the Kiln?
Kiln.
Kiln. With an N. Where you put the clay in. It looks like if you just rolled up clay and twisted it and then put it in the kiln, this is what would come out with a glaze. With a wet glaze.
Yeah, totally. I think that's right.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. It's just, he's so bad. And this is a problem across a lot of Marvel movies, is generic villains. There's just nothing specific about him. He just wants to basically turn everything into dust and then reform it into his own castle, I guess.
Yeah. I also is he being passed through different bodies? People turn into Apocalypse?
It's
or did I misread that?
No, you're right. Because that's how he became Oscar Isaac. He got placed into Oscar Isaac's body in the Egyptian times. And at the end, he's trying to put himself into Charles Xavier's body.
Yes.
Which I guess apparently is how he got bald. We'll go with that. Yes. And also, that's the other thing. His plan, he's like, wait, you can read minds? Oh, I need that. Give me. I don't know. I just don't respect someone who halfway through their evil plan is like, wait, I want to change plans.
Yeah. He's supposed to be all powerful and he's making it up as he goes along.
Yeah.
For real. Oh, God. Okay. I think it's time for me to address. There was one scene in this movie that I was so upset they put in because I knew you two were watching. Do you remember the part when Hugh Jackman showed up and there was Wolverine?
Yes.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
I was like, I'm going to be in trouble. Whatever you want to ask me, anything. I'm so
maybe
sorry
it's not now that I think about it, but I found, when he's having his disgusting claws slurp out of his hands with sound.
Mm-hmm.
And also when he gets shot and he sort of flicks bullets out of his own chest. They just sort of, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I
Yes.
personally was disgusted.
Oh, yes. Well, I was talking about the whole, like, his presence in general. They did not need him to make this cameo.
Yeah.
And I will say, I mean, yes, to your point, Natalie, it was disgusting, but as someone who's watched all the Wolverine movies, par for the course, honestly. But it was very uncomfortable for me because knowing that Wolverine and Jean Grey have a relationship as adults, it was very weird to see teenage Jean Grey do that little mental thing with him.
Yeah.
I was
That
like,
is so weird. I didn't know that.
They should not have done that.
Well,
that was...
I'll say this about Wolverine's appearance. I was not fazed by it until the very last shots of him leaving, because the way I would urge everyone to go back again and watch as he exits through the snow. It is the weakest run I have ever seen. It was like, so I laughed out loud. It was so weak the way he was running through the snow. Like, he's supposed to be like the strongest thing in the universe, and he was like barely getting through the snow. So funny.
God. So that's Wolverine. An unfortunate cameo. I do think the criminal who directed this movie demanded that. And you know, that's what happens when you have a criminal direct your films. All right, Evan Peters. Any thoughts about Evan Peters, the Quicksilver, as he is for some reason called?
I thought he was the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
like far and away.
The when the school was blowing up, the Sweet Dreams segment.
I loved that segment, but just like in general, he that character like brought a lot of levity to an otherwise dark tale. And
yes.
I think this, I said this before we started recording, I have seen all of WandaVision, and so I knew the most about Quicksilver and Evan Peters and where he fits into the Marvel universe too.
Yes, because this is for the nerds, in the comics, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are brother and sister, and their father is Magneto. But because of contracts and studios and who gets the rights to what character name, some of these family relationships get lost. There's also a thread where Mystique, Jennifer Lawrence's character, is the mother of Nightcrawler. So I liked I kind of felt that with, like, you know, as an adopted mother kind of figure where she like rescues him and he's kind of like her little acolyte buddy the whole time. So we get some of that. All right.
I don't think it's too important to say, but I do think the glasses that he wears, or the goggles, look like he is an indie guitar player at Pitchfork. They are wearing those these days. Look out.
Look out.
Look out. Nightcrawler was wearing glasses, or
no, Evan Peters.
Oh, Evan Peters. Yes. Cool. All right. Last call for Apocalypse thoughts. Are there any characters we haven't talked about? Anything you need to get off your chest? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Sad that Scott's brother died immediately.
Yeah, and he was in the original prequel movie, Havoc.
Felt unnecessary.
I would agree. Well, I guess that's the end of that. No, wait. Did you? I'm sorry, listener. Did you think I wouldn't do a fuck, marry, kill for X-Men Apocalypse? You're so dumb. But I also love you, and please keep listening to this podcast if you are. Shout out to Ronell Chan, and Isaac Snyder. I haven't shouted out Isaac Snyder in so long. Thank you, Isaac, for listening. It's time for Fuck, Marry, Kill Horsemen Edition. So for this Fuck, Marry, Kill, we're going to do the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse. We're going to take Magneto off the board. I think we all know what would happen. I mean, no offense, everybody. I've claimed him. Michael Fassbender's Magneto. That's for me. So I'm going to keep him for me. As host. I get that power. So on the docket today, we got Storm, Angel, and Olivia Munn Psylocke. I will go first to give my guest time to think. I will be, oh boy, I'm going to kill Psylocke. I'm so sorry. I do not get it. I think Olivia Munn, I don't know what she was doing. I don't know what she thought she was doing, but that ain't it. I was like, this is a mess. First of all, Psylocke is a British mutant from the comics. Where was the accent? Also, her outfit looked weird. I mean, it was like ringlets all over her body, and her pink sword that could turn into other things. I didn't get it. And also that character never made any sense to me. She's like psychic, but it comes out in like swords and whips. It's too much. It's not my brand. It's for horny teenage boys, and I am not that anymore. So goodbye, Psylocke. I will trap her in a pink crystal and throw over a cliff. I will fuck Angel. I was a little hesitant on Angel. It wasn't quite the Archangel that I know from the cartoon series, but you know what? For one night, pretty good. I want to, he'll lift me. We'll do it in the air with his wings. It'll be great. Be very special. And I'm going to marry Storm because even though I don't think she's from Egypt, and even though the accent was wobbly, and even though Alexandra's ship does better in other things, I still love Storm. So I'm going to marry Storm.
Nice.
Thank you. Those are my picks. Nia D'Emilio. So sorry for that. Please, who are your picks?
Okay, I am going to kill Angel. He just seems so dumb to me. Like, he literally makes so many mistakes in this movie. I literally wouldn't be able to tolerate his tomfoolery. So I'm gonna kill him. I am going to, I guess, fuck Storm because I don't know. Well, let's put a pin in that because I feel like my explanation of why I would marry Psylocke would make sense why I would fuck Storm.
Okay.
So I'm going to marry Psylocke. I just feel like she had some depth. She had some like mysteries to her. And I feel like I could have a relationship with her because she just felt like the fullest of the three, like as this being the only X-Men movie I've seen. I know that there's a lot of other Storm lore, but I don't know. This is the only time I know Storm. So like I just felt like there was more to Psylocke. I could see, a life with her. And then basically that just leaves fucking Storm. And I'd be glad too. She seems nice and she's hot. I'm in.
Yes. Also, I should say the weather would be a factor with Storm. Obviously, I feel like I didn't say that for mine, but like she could, she could make it a nice temperate environment for. Yeah. Cool. All right, Natalie Peeples, traveling artist.
Okay. I think perhaps we've done the perfect combo because I think mine is different than both of yours, I think. But yes, I would choose to fuck Psylocke because I believe her outfit was bad. She didn't seem right there. When she was making noises during fights, like exerting herself, it didn't sound right to me. But because of that, I sort of had like a little soft spot for her trying really hard because I know she did try really hard.
She really did.
And so I would also choose to marry Storm, just because I feel like I could spend the most time with her. She seemed like nothing annoyed me or worried me. Good vibes, in my opinion. And then I would kill Angel because when his wings got kind of electrocuted or whatever, I kind of got the ick from that. I was kind of like, oh, how could you let that happen? It's your wings.
That's why I'm saying he's dumb.
When he was in the cage, when he was fighting Nightcrawler?
Yes, when he was fighting Nightcrawler, I was sort of like, and you're, come on,
You let this happen?
Yeah. So I can't see that. Nah.
Honestly, fair. Your choices are your choices, and I stand by them. That is Fuck, Marry, Kill. And honestly, that is X-Men Apocalypse. I think this is a beautifully short podcast episode. This podcast episode should have been the length of this movie. And there I said it. Natalie Peeples, where can people find you online? What are you doing? Anything you want to promote?
You can't find me. I never even know where I am. I've been in a different time zone every week, but check out my Instagram. I've been posting some sunsets. That's my name, Natalie Peeples.
Yes, check out the sunsets. Nia D'Emilio, I'm so sorry, but God.
It gets more every time.
I told myself, don't do the accent when you say her name. And then And now here we are. Nia, what are you doing?
Well, I did just release an album a couple weeks ago. It's called Tough Summer. It's streaming on everything. Feel free to take a listen if you wish, but otherwise you can just follow me at Nia_D'Emilio on Instagram. I post a lot of stories. I'm sure it's annoying for both of you to follow me, but
No.
I just
No
want to
way.
communicate with my friends.
Nia, as a remote virtual assistant, I appreciate your stories. Also, JK, I work 24/7. Thank you both so much. This is Podcast 616. You can follow Podcast 616 on Instagram at Podcast 616P3. That P3 stands for Press Play Podcast, the podcasting network that allows me to cover the Summer of X and all the X-Men movies all summer long because they don't regulate me at all. Feels like not having a boss, but I know someone's in charge. Closest person I have to Press Play Podcast is, of course, producer Michael. Producer Michael, if you want to hop on the mic real quick, what letter grade would you give this podcast recording?
I loved it. I'll give you guys an A+.
Yes. Michael, what letter grade would you give X-Men Apocalypse?
I give it like a D+.
Whoa.
Generous. 45% for me, baby. All right. That is the podcast. That is the apocalypse. We will be back next week with X-Men Dark Phoenix, the last X-Men movie. I've watched them all, and I'm different now. So please tune in next week so we can wrap it all up together. Natalie, Nia, Double Ends, thank you so much. And don't forget that with great power comes even greater responsibility.